with parents. They seem to be in such a major. Hello and welcome to the BMore podcast. I'm your host, Erica Kane. The Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys is a staple of the Baltimore community that has been teaching, nurturing, and refining young men and parents since 2015. Earlier this year, after a review by the public school system, the school was in danger of being forced to close. However, students, parents, community, and board members came together to fight to keep the school open. Here today is CEO of the Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys, also known as BCSB, Mr. Edwin Avent, to discuss the institution's impact and importance to the city. Mr. Avent, welcome.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me, Erica.
Yes, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you as well.
Yes, indeed. So, a bit of a rough patch this year, but we'll get to that because it looks like so far all well has prevailed, but we'll get into it.
Absolutely.
So the Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys has been in operation since 2015, like we just mentioned, and now 8 years later, tell us what BCSB offers.
Well, wow. The 8 years has gone by so quickly.
Right.
The school was founded with this mission of trying to get as many boys from Baltimore to and through college as possible.
Okay.
We look at the statistics that are, impact our city like other cities, particularly when it comes to young African American males. And, too often the scale is weighted on the wrong side for us, in my opinion. Not enough high school graduation, not enough attaining of education. And so it leads to all types of problems from incarceration to homelessness to, early death, And so we always had this vision of we want to change that trajectory. The school was the vision of a gentleman by the name of Jack Johnson Pennell. And Jack was a visionary. He was an attorney by training, but he also spent time on Wall Street, time on Capitol Hill. But in his heart, he always knew that he wanted to start a school that would impact the lives of black and brown boys. Just so happened that I was introduced to him back in 2011. I'm one of the founders of an organization called Black Professional Men. And our mission is to ensure the future of the African American male. So we have been mentoring boys for many years and giving out scholarships. We've given out about 250 scholarships to young African American males to go to college. But in my heart, I always wanted to have a school of our own for black boys, one that would rival Gilman or Boys Latin, if you know those schools here in Baltimore that are private schools for boys. I wanted to build a school like that could be accessible to all boys in the city and free. And so the way Jack saw the way we would do it is through creating a charter school. So in 2015, we were able to open the doors to Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys with about 168 boys, and it grew to the point that we got up to 480 boys from 4th grade to 8th grade. And our mission is to give them the finest liberal arts education that will prepare them to lead, to become critical thinkers, to become the guys that will come back and lead Baltimore, the state of Maryland, the country, and the world. That's our mission. And so we've been hard at work over the last 8 years doing that work. But anybody who knows anything about charter schools, you get a charter and they give you this for so many years. And every so many years you have to apply for renewal to keep the charter going.
Right.
And so we had a 5-year charter and then we applied and got a 3-year renewal. And this past year we just applied again to get another renewal. So we got another 3-year renewal. But like you said, it was after a hard-fought battle. But the things that have happened over the years before COVID, were outstanding. We've taken boys all around the world. We take them to England, to Canada, to Australia. We were going to take some to Africa until the pandemic hit. So one of the things we try to do for all of our boys, by the time they hit 8th grade, we want them to have a passport. We want them to know how to swim and know how to play chess. So we want them to be worldly, to be able to get out there in the world and compete with others just like themselves around the world. The other thing is we're becoming a global society. And so these boys, we never know. Their entry-level job might be in Brazil. It might be in Spain, or it might be in England. And so we want them to get used to getting out of Baltimore and seeing the world. And so we've done that. We've graduated classes of boys. Our boys graduate from us in the 8th grade, and our first class graduated in 2018 from our school, and this past June, they graduated from high school. 90% of them graduated on time. About 25 of them are in college as freshmen right now. And what's really exciting is this year is our second class of 8th graders that graduated in 2019. They're graduating from high school this year. 97% of those boys, 67 out of 69 boys, are graduating on time in 4 years.
Okay.
And 51 of them are heading off to college. So we're just incredibly excited about that.
Exciting.
Yeah.
So BCSB, currently 4th grade through 8th grade, right?
Yes.
And it's a charter school. What is the acceptance process like? Who is eligible to attend?
Well, it's open to every boy in Baltimore City. Charter schools work on a lottery basis, so it's almost like a first come, first serve. And each grade level, we have so many seats. And so if the number of applicants go over the number of seats we have, we literally have a lottery where we just go in and pick out the names until it fills all the seats. If we don't get as many applicants for a class, say we have 100 seats in a class like our 4th grade, but we only get 60 boys that apply, then we'd take them as first come, first serve until all 100 seats are filled. So that's how charter schools go. So we don't have any criteria. We can't interview, we can't screen them, we can't test them. We have to take everybody who would like to come. But what we try to do in all the things that we do when we go out and talk to the public, and whether it's our advertising or whatever, we try to let the families know that we really are a school determined to get your son to college. Now, not every boy is going to go to college, and not every parent sees that in their child's future. So we say that to them. If you don't see that in their future, that's understandable. There's 151 schools in Baltimore City. There's only one Baltimore Collegiate, and our mission is to get boys to college. So we try to encourage people who are really serious about their son's education and want him to go higher to bring their son to our school. And those who think their son might be leaning in other directions, take a look at some of the other schools.
Okay, that might be a better fit.
That might be a better fit.
Now, you mentioned 3 prerequisites, I guess, that the boys would have before they graduate. Having a passport, knowing how to swim, and knowing how to play chess.
Yes.
Why chess?
Chess is a game of strategy. It really helps you think about so many things in life, and it was really interesting. I was hearing, one of my young men, he was in 8th grade, and they were talking to each other, and I was observing, and they were just discussing the game of chess, and one of them said, what's the metaphor for life, and I'm like, that's what they're getting it.
Right,
yes, it's a
right.
metaphor for life, strategy and understanding how to think strategically, think 2 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead. What's going to be your next move to get you to the point where you're victorious in whatever that mission is in life? And so we think that chess helps them to think critically and analyze, so.
Now, I know the curriculum goes deeper than those 3
prerequisites those are just,
that I just mentioned, but those are 3 very interesting prerequisites that I wanted to mention. But advisory, things like arts integration, break down some of the things that are involved in the curriculum that you think are that are special and are needed for the young men.
Well, some of the things that we think are needed, particularly, one of the things is, as soon as we get boys in the 4th grade, we're digging deep into what they brought to the table. And one of the challenging things that you experience here in Baltimore City, probably in other cities, though, we get boys in the 4th grade who are reading below grade level. So we had to spend a lot of our time initially bringing boys up to speed so that they can get on grade level with reading and in math. And so early on, we're doing a lot of work where we're trying to do some advisory, and we call advisory like your one-on-ones, with your teachers after class, after school, to try and help bring boys up. Typically, we have interns and fellows that are at our school, who thinking about education as a future, so they come to us right out of undergrad. We have our collegiate fellows, and they spend a lot of their time as mentors and tutors of the boys. And so we're trying to get those boys all up to speed. But throughout the course of their time with us, they're going to get to learn a language. So, Spanish is really the language that we focus on. There'll be a number of boys that get the opportunity to take Algebra 1, and we're trying to get them algebra in the 8th grade. So by the time they hit high school, they're taking geometry in Algebra 2, and it gives them the opportunity to get pre-calc and calc by the time they're seniors. So those are some of these things that we're doing a little bit differently at our school. We really engage our boys in our extracurricular activities and around STEM, though we focus on liberal arts. I'm really big on STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, and now they call it STEAM, and you throw arts in there as well. But trying to get boys ready for careers of the future. Obviously, when you look at things like AI that's taking over Chat GPT, things
Right.
are very scary, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to make sure our boys are adept, that they can be, relevant in
Yeah.
the careers of the future. And
Right.
so we create partnerships with other organizations who want to come in and bring STEM, organizations like Citrix, Google, some other companies that come in and want to try and help our boys get prepared for a future in technology. And so just a heavy emphasis on just academics. We really want our boys who come there to think like, this is hard,
Yeah.
this is hard. It is hard because we're trying to get you ready to go to that next level. And we tell that to parents, that's, if you bring your son to us, know that we're going to work them hard because we're trying to get them ready.
Right. And debate is also an important part
Debate.
of your curriculum.
Yep.
Just young men learning how to voice their arguments, voice their concerns. Some people stepping out of their shell.
Absolutely.
Speaking
Debate,
in front of an audience.
robotics. We participate in the science Olympiad, math Olympiads, all of these different things that are really putting them in challenging environments with other children from other competitive schools. And our boys do very well in all of those things, coming home with a lot of awards. So I'm extremely proud of all those awards they get. But I'm almost equally as proud because we think athletics is very important as well. So we try to create student athletes that are achieving both on the field and in the classroom. And so from the athletic standpoint, we're champions. We're the middle school basketball champion this year. We're the middle school track champion. We're middle school wrestling champions this year. And then I think in one other, like football, we came up in second. We lost in the
close.
championship.
Close.
But nobody likes to play Baltimore Collegiate.
Okay.
They're like, oh God, here
I
they
hear
come.
that, Mr. Avent. All right now.
We're competitive.
You heard it. And why something like peer mediation is so important, especially with young men and young black men, just learning how to mediate. How to still love and respect one another in the midst of mediating and not agreeing. Because, out here in these streets, folks don't always know how to
Right.
mediate.
Right? No, we think that is so important. We really are trying to teach boys how to negotiate things with their words. And even how to communicate with your body language, because sometimes more is communicated with your body language than even with your words,
Yeah.
right? So we're trying to teach boys how to, like you say, mediate, how to sit down and talk things out, and even teaching young men to be mediators amongst themselves.
Right.
So they have peer mediation. But we're hoping all of these things will translate that for their own safety, but then they spread it to the wider community. They help to diffuse situations that are going on out there in these streets. It's challenging. I mean, this year at the beginning of the year, it was very humbling for us because we lost one of our first gents. He graduated from our school 2 years ago, and he was over at Mervo, and unfortunately, he was murdered at Mervo. That's outside before his football game, and his name is Jeremiah Brogdon, and it really like brought close to home why we do what we do.
Yes.
We are trying to teach these young boys that you have a future. We want you to use your brain, and you can't let anything get in the way, and you can't get caught up into the petty disagreements and things like that because you got a much bigger, important mission. And so, but that can be devastating sometimes. It took a little bit of time for it to heal because
absolutely.
he had a younger brother that was still at our school.
Oh, goodness.
So, God is working.
And that brings us to mental health services. When when you're met with something like this, and then you have a student that's involved or an
Yes.
alum that's involved, how does the school step in to support the community and support the student?
Well, we have both in-house, we have our own social worker that is in-house, but we also have contracted with outside services to be in our school and actually work with boys and their families around mental health issues. So we have counselors that are on site all the time that we spend extra for that because a lot of our boys are dealing with trauma from a variety of for a variety of reasons. Quite often, you could go into the auditorium and say, okay, how many of y'all know somebody who got killed this year?
Yeah.
And you'd see 20% of the hands, 25% of the hands go. That's a lot of trauma that's going on in that building. And sometimes those people are in their family. And so we think it's extremely important that we keep mental health services there for the boys, but we also try to engage their families, their parents if they need it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the parental support, I mean, I know that you have a parent group, but sometimes the parents also need support themselves. The parents are learning. Sometimes when you have a school that is so involved and invested in your child, it's a new experience for the parent. And the parent has to keep up and make some adjustments so that this can be a smooth process for the child.
Absolutely.
So how does that work in terms of resources for the parents?
Well, you can, and sometimes in those cases, right, you can, lead a horse to water, can't make them drink kind of thing.
Okay.
So we try to have services. Our PTA is called the Villagers. And so, it takes a village to raise a child. So they're the villagers.
Okay.
And so, you always have the 20%, the 80-20 rule,
Okay.
20% of the people show up to do 80% of the work.
Okay.
We're trying to always increase that, trying to get more family members involved and coming to seek services, to be more involved in the day-to-day operation of the school and coming in to volunteer, things like that. But certainly when they need support and things like that,
Absolutely.
like I said, some of the services that we make available to our boys, we try to make that available to their parents. Now, what I'm really excited about, we're getting ready to become a community school. And when you get a community school designation, you get all of these other services. And so we're looking to partner with a larger institution. It could be Johns Hopkins Hospital. It could be the YMCA of Central Maryland. So we're right now investigating which partnership we're going to go with. But they bring a whole nother layer of support for the entire community, but particularly our school community, the boys as well as their families, their siblings, their parents, because we know that all those people impact our student.
Yes.
Okay, and so we need to make sure they're healthy in order for us to have a healthy student.
Absolutely, and everyone's on the same page. You're known in the community. Whenever you're seen out and about in the school, in the community, TV, wherever, you're usually pretty impeccably dressed or dressed representing the school. Why is the dress code at BCSB so important?
Well, you ever go into the 7-Eleven and you walk up behind a young brother and his pants is sagging down, you see his underwear and stuff, and you just want to say, young brother, why don't you pull up your pants? You know?
Or this day the pants might be too tight, but
They might
we're
be
going
too
in all
tight. We're
different
going all these
directions.
different
these
directions.
days.
But, even a person like myself, as much as I tend to lean in sometimes when I'm not supposed to, I kind of hold back from saying something to a brother in public. But in school,
Right.
they're a captive audience, right?
Right.
And so we try to model what that should look like,
Right.
And so you caught me on one of my rare days that I didn't, come dressed in the suit and tie and everything
You're
like that.
representing the
But I'm
school.
representing the school.
Yes.
I have our shirt on. So our boys are either wearing shirt and tie or they're wearing a polo shirt with our logo on it. But we're trying to teach them that how you carry yourself and how you see yourself is important.
Yeah.
Because though people like, man, I should be able to do whatever I want to do, dress the way I want to, wear my hair the way I want to, put tattoos. I'm like, you know what, man, you can say that, and sure, you can do that. But here's the reality. It's something called the golden rule, right? And some people believe that the golden rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto yourself. I look at it a different way. The golden rule is he who has the gold makes the rules.
Okay.
And typically, you want some of that gold at some point, whether that's a job or something else that you need. And so, though you want to dress for yourself, you want to have your own style, the people that hold the keys to some of the things that you might want, have a certain expectation of how they expect you to carry yourself.
Right.
And so we're trying to demonstrate to them, this is how you carry yourself if you want to be respected in certain circles and get the things that you want to get. You never really get, pushed away if you come dressed with your pants pulled up, your shirt tucked in. If you wear a suit, you're just treated differently, And sometimes there's times when I probably would rather be casual, but I'd say, let me throw in a suit because I know what reaction I get from it. And so we try to teach the boys about that and tuck in your shirt, pull your pants. And what's really great is when I run into people at some of the high schools that our boys who have graduated from us are in, whether it's Bard or Seed School or Poly, people will say, you could tell a Baltimore Collegiate boy, yeah, they always are well-mannered and they always are neat and stuff. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love that that's our reputation in the schools that we send our boys to.
Right.
And so I think it begins, they start to get it like, wow, people treat me a little bit differently. They give me a little bit more respect. And we're trying to teach them that.
Right.
Styles are changing nowadays. You look around, brothers be wearing sneakers with suits all the time now. Some
Right.
styles are changing. But certain things just remain the same, and they translate a certain energy to people when you dress a certain way. So we think it's really important. We're trying to tell them why it's important.
Right.
And we demonstrated ourselves and how we carry ourselves.
So 8 years ago, when the initial board all came together and decided to bring together the Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys, and again, you said you wanted to have something that would rival something like Gilman. Was the community receptive?
Community was extremely receptive. Yeah, we had big waiting list, almost like 400, 500 boys on our waiting list
Wow.
in our earliest years. And it stayed that way until the pandemic, really. And the pandemic has just really changed the world and how people look at education, how people just look at work and everything. But prior to that, yes, we had a nice size waiting list every year for each one of our grade levels, and we hit our maximum number of students for several years in a row. And so I think a lot of people saw it as important. And then what was really good is the philanthropic community really was supportive of us.
Oh, that's great.
People who, say they watch the news and they keep on saying, what can I do? What can I do? They wring their hands and what can I do? But then they see what we're doing and say, that's an alternative. We believe in education.
Right.
We believe if they can get to college, that's going to change these kids' lives. And if you guys can do it better than other people, we'll support you. And so we've been very blessed with people in the community who have donated to our school to help us with the programming that we've been able to deliver to the boys.
Right. What about staffing and volunteers? Has it been, the process that one has to, go through to become involved, interested in, but also has there always been an overabundance or have you been seeking help?
Well, lately,
From then to now?
Yeah, from then to now. Once again, the pandemic has changed everything, and so since the pandemic, there is a national teacher shortage. Like a lot of people who have left the profession, and we haven't been immune from that. Trying to constantly recruit good, qualified, certified teachers
Right.
to fill every spot in our school. It's definitely been a challenge over the last 2 years. And so certainly if there's any teachers who are excited about changing the trajectory of young black and brown boys in Baltimore City and want to give, we have opportunities now. We're looking for teachers at all levels from both elementary school and the middle school. And we're always recruiting. And so whenever I'm out talking like this, there's 3 things I'm trying to accomplish. I'm trying to recruit new students, trying to recruit new teachers, and trying to recruit new friends of our school who might be willing to donate time, talent, and treasure to our schools. But we're certainly looking for more teachers. Lots of people in the community have been stepping up to volunteer, different groups, men's groups and things like that. The Kappas, the Qs, Black Professional Men have been organizations who've been willing to volunteer time and talent, but we're looking for actual certified teachers too.
Yeah, and in terms of student safety, do you feel like the vetting process is it's pretty thorough, I'm sure?
Yes, the vetting. Well, the Baltimore City runs a pretty thorough vetting process. So everybody gets fingerprinted and background checked and things like that before they're able to come into the school on a regular basis. We do have people who might come to school to speak at an event and stuff like that. They don't have to go through that process. But say you volunteer to be a regular mentor or somebody who comes in, then yeah, we even put those people through the background check because they're going to be around our students, and we owe that to our families that we're protecting their sons.
You mentioned how just the pandemic and COVID has changed so much in terms of operation and things like that. What do you find have been some of the toughest challenges in terms of students?
That 2 years away from being in school, it really impacted students in major ways. Some students left during the pandemic as second graders and came back as fourth graders, but they really came back as second graders in fourth grader bodies.
All right.
Their maturity, and everything, I think was really
Affected.
That socialization, the lack of socialization,
Wow.
being, holed up in your own house for a year and a half.
Yes.
You couldn't be around other children playing and running and doing all those things. So when they came back, there was a lot of pent-up aggression and energy that we have been wrestling with all the way through then.
Yeah.
But not only that, you see these differences in children's behavior and their tone and the things that they say out of their mouth around adults and stuff like that I'm often like, really? When did you get so comfortable that you speak around adults in that manner where they're cursing or they're doing things that, if my sons did that around some adults,
Right.
they had to be talking to dad when they get home,
Right,
or
right.
they might talk to dad a few minutes after he heard that. But children right now, their socialization skills are like different. Maybe being stuck in the house around adults and parents all the time, they got to talking to each other like they were peers or something.
And the parents were losing it too.
The parents were losing it. So I get it. I get it. But these children, they came back a little bit different, bouncing off the walls, and us really having to deal with the socialization of getting them back used to being around each other.
And caught up.
Yeah. And keeping their hands to themselves and all of this kind of stuff. But what also happened during that time was a lot of learning loss. Even though we were doing class, our students were showing up at a 90+% rate every day during the pandemic online. We did a really good job of them showing up. When they came back into the building and they actually did the testing, you saw that there was a great deal of learning loss that happened amongst all these children. And so we've been doing double work trying to bring children back up to their rightful levels of reading, math, and that performance. And it's been really a Herculean task.
Right. And then, again, I guess my next question, the biggest challenge is dealing with the parents.
Well, parents love their children. Everybody loves their children, no matter what. No matter if they show up every day dropping that child off, that they care that child gets, because they don't have to. They could just let the child, wander the streets or stay at home.
Get there the best way they can.
Best way they can if they get there. So I definitely believe that parents love their children and they want the best for their children. I just think that as society is changing, as we're growing, as we're getting older, particularly we as a people, and when I say we, I'm talking primarily around like the African American community and stuff like that. I think that 60s, 70s, 80s even, we just took education so much more seriously. We had something we had to prove. We had to move up. We had to go to college, and it was so serious for us as a community. We wanted to show everybody that we were their equal and we were better, And so it was important for us to take education seriously. And some of the most respected people in the community were teachers and principals.
Right.
It's a different world now.
It is.
Where education isn't as valued as the way it should be in our community. And though the world is changing and not everybody thinks that a college education is necessary, certainly you can build a decent career in the trades and technology and stuff like that. And I believe that. But I think so much more is gotten through going to college, in the maturation process, socialization process, understanding how to deal with people and talk to communicate with people and live with people and grow up in that kind of environment. It's missing. And so some of these parents, they didn't go to college, so they don't necessarily value it. And they're like, just go to school, And what we're trying to do is we need a collective uplift of our entire community to take education more seriously.
Absolutely.
Because, like I said, man, I remember we had so much pride. My parents and them, they went to the high school in shirt and tie, and on college campuses, they wore ties. They wore like suits to class,
right?
Because they were about their business. And I think we have to do that. We got to emphasize that more. One of the things that's really driving me was a headline in the Wall Street Journal, not Wall Street, New York Times recently that said 1 in 3 students on HBCU campuses are men.
Okay.
Only 1 in 3.
Right.
So we're only like a third.
They told us 1 in 12 when I was at my HBCU.
At your HBCU. And certain ones, it probably is the case.
Right,
It's probably the case. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so that's tragic that we have
tragic,
that brothers aren't going to college enough. And so that's one of the reasons why I believe our school is so important.
Absolutely.
I really want to create that pipeline. And not only here, I'd love to replicate it in other markets, and in other places in Maryland, whether it's Baltimore County, Prince George's County, but in cities like D.C. and Detroit and Dallas, I'd just like to have a collegiate school for boys so we can crank up that pipeline again and get them going back to college again and seeing the importance of it. But a lot of people are saying it's not important. So, and college is just a big business. But I'm like, I think there's so much to gain by getting more education,
Yeah.
And I think college is valuable.
And when you mention that about respecting education, just across the board, and it's not just in one community, I feel like across the board, there's just been a dumbing down of curriculum all across the board where, kids don't have to write cursive, or kids don't have to learn how to tell time by looking at a clock because everything's digital, and just feeling like that's a way of keeping up with the times. But really, those are weaknesses. If you can walk somewhere and you can't, and you are going to middle school, or you're in middle school about to graduate, and you're looking at a clock and you're having trouble telling time because we don't really go over that.
Right. Or you don't know how to write your signature because you don't know cursive.
You can't sign your name.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I'm thinking like certain things I understand advances, and others I think are just essential to the core that everybody should be taught, then so there's parts of me that's totally about modernization and staying on top of things, and then there's a large part of me that's about tradition, and I think that there's a place for it, that we have to keep emphasizing it.
Right. There's still a place for certain things, but you have to keep up, and I agree with that also.
Yes, absolutely.
So just late last year, you were sitting in the courtroom at Baltimore's Juvenile Justice Center, where a teen was being charged as an adult for first-degree murder. So this young man was a squeegee worker, accused of killing a motorist, major case here in the city, and you were in the courtroom. And you said, quote, "When the young man was first brought into the courtroom in shackles and chains, I'm looking at a little 15-year-old boy. He could be a student at my school easily." And so you said this isn't quite the view that you envision for your own students, that in your picture you see, quote, the next mayor of Baltimore, or the next mayor of Baltimore, or a mayor in Baltimore, maybe the next black governor in the state of Maryland, in your picture, but not a killer, not a man in shackles. Right. Another observation you made, quote, you said he, the young defendant, said that part of him being on the corner with the other squeegee boys was that it was his community. That he saw the guys when they asked him about mentors, that he saw these guys, some of these squeegee guys, as his mentors. So a lot of these young men are looking to belong. And you said at BCSB, one of our mottos is, whatever hurts my brother hurts me.
And whatever helps my brother helps me.
Right, right. And so you're just trying to get to some of these young men and instill a culture before they meet the wrong community.
Exactly.
Or the wrong mentors to look up to. And so, how cases like this inspire what you do every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to be there if I could have said something to just say, he's a little boy. He's really a little boy, Unfortunately, he did cause the death of someone else.
Yes.
But it was in his mind, I believe he believed it was self-defense. And if that person was swinging a bat, imagine you're there with your brother or your sister, and somebody's about to harm your brother and sister, you as a sibling would do whatever you can to protect your brother or sister. You know.
Now, you
and
know,
I would.
there was a lot of going back and forth about this video and the right and wrong. You know, there's a lot of
Absolutely.
Yeah,
But
peek
when
down
you,
the middle.
in your mind, if you think somebody's coming with a baseball bat to hurt you
Oh,
or
absolutely.
your family, you're going to react,
Yes.
right? And unfortunately, he reacted with a gun, and so I can't condone the fact that he actually killed a man, but I can understand that in his mind he thought he was protecting his family. But nonetheless, they're children, you know, and for us, I don't think you can treat children like adults. They just aren't. They don't reason. Particularly, they talk about the development of the brain, like their prefrontal cortex hasn't even connected. It hasn't developed. So lots of things don't make sense to them, you know, that completely makes sense to us because we have mature brains. Theirs are still growing and developing, and sometimes their reasoning is just not that of an adult. So to charge them as an adult, I think, is just wrong. I think I always will believe that that's just wrong. But, you know, I just pray that that doesn't happen to any of my boys, you know, and that's what we try to talk to them about all the time, about decision making and making the right decision and being with the right people and stuff like that. But I totally understand how these guys see each other as family. In my school, I have homeless boys. You know, I have boys who have to get home. Sometimes they don't show up to school, and you're wondering where they are because they had to be mom or dad to their little brother and sister. They had to stay at home with them,
Right.
you know, because their father might be in jail and their mom had to go somewhere, and they had to just stay home and take care of their brother and sister, you know. And so they do adult-like things. But I think that's so much to put on a child.
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. And so, like you said, BCSB just instilling that support, what it is like to be a community member, to be a brother, to be a mentor, to help others in need, being a family man one day. When you have those thoughts in mind,
Yes.
you behave a different way, just how to present yourself. So, you know, it speaks volumes to, I guess, why a program like BCSB is so important. And so now you have the review that came about from the public school system.
Right.
And this is an annual.
Well, like when you go for your renewal, like you have so many years on your renewal. So
Right.
say if I have a 5-year renewal,
Right, you
they'll
broke that
begin
down.
doing their review of us in year 4, so they can make their determination in year 5 whether they're going to extend you. So for us, we had a 3-year renewal. They began their review of us at the end of year 2. Now
Right.
for us, the first year of our renewal was the pandemic. So if we had 3 years, but the first year, all of our boys are at home, you know,
Right.
nobody's in the building, you know. The second year was last year, everybody came back to the building, and it was crazy for all schools.
For everyone.
Nationwide.
Catching up.
Nationwide.
Yes.
Everybody's trying to catch up.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to get their students back up, like test scores back up, just trying to get them acclimated to being back in school.
Absolutely.
And socializing.
Yes.
We were going through that stuff when they were doing our review.
Right.
But also what came out of that pandemic is we lost several key staff members. Our principal left. Our founder, Jack Pinnell, left. We had several, you know, key people who were leaders who weren't there
Yeah.
during that school year. And so I was the chairman of the board.
Right.
And I stepped off the board to come in and act as the acting CEO until I was made the, you know, permanent CEO. And so we come into this school year having to get a new principal, having to build a new staff, and all of these kind of things. And by the time we get to the end of the school year, they're reviewing that situation. And so they came into this year saying, I don't know if we can recommend them for renewal. And I'm saying to them, like, but we just came out of the pandemic like everybody else, you know? And if you look at all these statistics that's going around on TV, on every place, they're talking about the number of schools in Baltimore City who didn't perform zero proficiency in math.
Right.
You got 26 of your school. You got
Yes.
43% of your schools where you got 8% or less
Yeah.
proficient in math and English. What's going on with your school? You're going through similar things that we're going through, but you're not going to close any of your schools. So why would you hold us to a separate standard? We're going through things. We'll get through them. We had to get a whole new staff of leaders, and now they're getting, their feet wet and they're building the team. Let's give us some more time. But we had to really kind of go through it. And fortunately, we took it to the court of public opinion and let the people in the city know what was going on. And when the community heard what was going on, especially what the parents heard, they said, "Oh, you can't do this. You with all these young boys dying in the streets and the squeegee and all this kind of stuff, but you got a school that boys are actually graduating from high school within 4 years at 90% and higher, and they're going to college." They're getting the results. No matter what's going on right now, they come through. Let's give them a chance to be here, get their things back in order, like all the rest of the schools got to get back in order, and then let's see. And so we were fortunate that though it was a struggle, they wound up voting in favor of giving us a 3-year extension with conditions. And so we're working really hard on meeting all the conditions that they have set up for us. And I'm very confident that we will be able to accomplish it. I have a lot of faith in the team that we have, and this year helped us, get our feet up under us as a new team of leaders. And I really believe that we're going to see some fantastic things coming out of BCSB over the next 2 to 3 years.
Right. And so what was mentioned specifically, operational difficulties spanning from missing paperwork to data entry error issues, which is kind of close to what you already mentioned. However, the same report showing that the school was performing well in terms of finance, in terms of academic performance, in terms of culture and social climate, in terms of governance. So, of course, Baltimore City Public Schools CEO Sonia Santelises said that she felt the school should stay open and did not feel that the violations were as severe, especially compared to other violations that were being found at other schools. And she also felt confident that you could keep the school open and work towards whatever issues that you had to clear up. Also reporting that the Mayor Brandon Scott was also in favor of the school staying open. So the community did come out in a major way. And like you said, you're feeling confident.
Yeah, we're grateful. More than anything, we feel grateful.
Yeah.
I was grateful when Dr. Santelises, really looked at the situation, because she had all this other information that she could have leaned the other way. But she, I think, went with her instinct. And one of the things is she believes in like a single sex, education. Her father's a Morehouse man, so she knows the importance of the camaraderie of men being educated with each other, and she's like, "I expect you to take it to that level, Edwin." And I'm like, I'm totally on the same page with you,
of course.
Dr. Santelises. We want that level of excellence, and so I'm grateful to her for giving us her vote of confidence that we could get it done. And I look forward to a partnership. I understand when people have to do their job, they got hard jobs to do. When I was younger, I used to want to be a mayor, right? When I grew up, because I grew up in Philadelphia.
Oh, did that change?
Yeah, and then I moved to Baltimore, and so I had these great role models. When I was in Philadelphia, it was a brother named Wilson Good, was the first black mayor of Philadelphia.
Okay.
And I came to Baltimore, and then Mayor Kurt Schmoke was elected, first elected black mayor. Dew Burns was the first black mayor. But these guys are my role models. But the more I watch, the more I realize that's a thankless job.
It's a lot to go through.
It's a lot to go through to try and help people, right? That's all I really want to do is try and help our community live a better life. And quite often you're being blamed for things that are entrenched in a community long before you took that seat.
Right.
There's generations upon generations of illness, of mental illness, of all these traumas and everything that you go back to redlining, everything that has created these situations in these cities, the mayor's getting blamed for. What you going to do about that? It's like, if I could turn back the clock, maybe I could have a bigger impact. So I say, you know what? I'd rather do something where I feel like I can have an impact and not have to have my whole life under a microscope.
Okay.
And so I'm one of the founders of an organization called Black Professional Men I mentioned earlier, and we've been since '91 we've been mentoring black boys, and we've been giving scholarships to them, and I believe that if you can impact the lives of a black man and make him strong, then he could be a husband and he could be a father at home with his kids. And he could become a homeowner and a taxpayer and a voter and a contributor to society. And so I believe that if I could get to the core of what I think is making the black community not as strong as it could be, which is the underdevelopment of black men or the unempowerment of black men, if I can empower them to become strong and competent and capable leaders and providers, it strengthens our entire community. And so for me, that's how I feel like give back. I'd rather leave the mayoring to the mayors and the governoring to the governors, but we can get into the community ourselves and mentor young brothers, provide scholarship to them, be role models to them, and educate them, and that will make them stronger.
Speaking of impact, BCSB is a college preparatory school. So it's currently grades 4 through 8. I know you're asked all the time about expanding or, would you expand a certain way? Would you become a high school? But when asked this question before, you said, really, if you had your wits about you, you would actually go in a different direction, which really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'd go down to pre-K. That's really where I'd like to go, take us down to pre-K and bring it all the way through 8th. If I had to go one way.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, when we're getting boys in the 4th grade, we're getting what was prepared from other schools.
You're already at a deficit.
And quite often they're at a deficit. And so we're spending a lot of our time trying to catch them up. I'd like to get them as babies and have them reading by the time they're 3 and 4 years old. So by the time they're in the 4th grade, they're reading at a 4th, 5th, 6th grade level.
Yes.
As opposed to at a 1st and 2nd grade level, which we get a lot of. And I know it's not just our school, it's schools all across the city where these students are a couple of years behind, but we're taking them in from others. So yeah, in my ideal world, I'm going down and getting them as babies and raising them all up. And then there's some good high schools that can prepare them for college.
Absolutely.
So if I can get them ready so they can get into Poly, City, School for the Arts, Dunbar, get them into the private schools, Bard or Coppin Academy, Seed, schools that are preparing children to go to college, then I think I do my job. If I can get them ready to get into those places, then we have an alumni center. So we're following our boys in high school. We know where they are. We're offering them services in high school. So we want to offer them tutoring. If they're having challenging classes in high school, we want to offer them SAT prep and college application assistance and scholarship application assistance. So we still want to work with our boys when they get into high school, but I'd rather try and get the best possible student ready to get into the most competitive high schools.
What has been or have been some of your proudest moments or success stories with BCSB?
Oh man. I think the proudest ones are like this past year, the class of 2022 from high school that had gotten into college. And so the boys that are at Morehouse, they're at Morgan, they're at UMES, they're at Frostburg, they're at a variety of colleges all over the place. And, they come back to the building sometime wearing their college T-shirt or whatever.
Yeah.
And so the little guys get to see these guys like, see, here he is. Here he is right there in that picture. That was him. He graduated from here. And so those are like the proudest moments. That's what we're doing this for, when I get to see them. And then we have some boys that are doing big things. Like we have one boy, Womack, is graduating from St. Francis this year. He's going to LSU to play football on a football scholarship. We got a boy named Derek Queen. He's at Mount Verde Academy now, which is a big high school in Florida, but he graduated from our school, from middle school, and he's going to be like a top 5 NBA prospect, but next year he's in the class of 2024, so colleges all over the country are vying for him to come play basketball for him. He's going to be a superstar. These guys are going to fulfill that dream that so many of my boys, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to go to the NBA, I want to go to the NFL. And so we keep on saying, okay, that's cool, but let's focus on the academics so that we can get you ready just in case. But then to actually see boys who are fulfilling that vision that they have and that we had a hand in it. They played sports for us and we coached them and stuff like that. That's a good feeling too.
Well, you're a success story in and of yourself. I mean, we mentioned a lot of the many ventures you've been a part of, and a lot of people may not know, but you're also CEO and publisher of Heart and Soul magazine, the nation's leading health, fitness, and life solutions magazine targeting African American women. I know Heart and Soul. And in 2004, you actually purchased Heart and Soul from Vanguard Media in New York and brought it to Baltimore.
Yep, sure did.
And what inspires you to purchase Heart and Soul?
Well, I started my magazine publishing career at Cornell. When I was at Cornell University as an undergrad, I started a campus magazine for the minority students there called Equity.
Okay.
Because it used to be a magazine for black students there called Umoja Sasa, and that's Swahili for Unity Now. But some guys who were older than me took it off campus and they made it into a engineering magazine and called it U.S. Black Engineer Magazine, or Umoja Sasa Black Engineer Magazine, later than U.S. Black Engineer. So I created Equity to replace them on campus. And eventually they were like, hey, why don't you come join us? And so I joined them, and then we moved from Ithaca to Baltimore, and that's how I wound up in Baltimore.
Okay.
And we built Career Communications Group, created something called the Black Engineer of the Year Awards Conference, Hispanic Engineer Magazine, and all these things like that. So I got into the magazine publishing business then. So from the time I started the campus magazine to then, helping them build a company, I knew eventually I'd like to have my own. And a few years later, Vanguard Media, which was really run by some guys that I used to work with at Career Communications Group, brother named Keith Cleanscales, Lynn Burnett, who started Vibe. They built Vibe magazine.
Right.
Then they broke off and they built their own company called Vanguard. They had Savoy, Honey, and Heart and Soul magazines. But then they got into some challenges, and I came in and swooped up Heart and Soul and moved it out of New York and brought it to Baltimore. So my background was in magazine advertising, sales, and things like that, and I understood how to build teams and stuff like that. And probably my favorite venture has been, Heart and Soul magazine. It was like me and all these women who were running the magazine, right? But I ain't mad at them. They get it done. We won awards after awards, and it really had impact in the community. And I was really, really proud of my time with Heart and Soul magazine. And then that led me into helping to launch a regional television network called the Soul of the South. And we got that off the ground and into about 27 markets until I sold my interest in that as well. So media was a big part of my life.
Yes.
But while I was doing that, I was always involved with black professional men and, mentoring young boys and giving scholarships. So I was doing that as my business. The media stuff is my business, but always my philanthropy has been around black men and boys and mentoring and giving scholarships and stuff like that. And so I've had a great career where I've, been able to run a couple of businesses.
Yes, indeed. On the board for directors for ABC Associated Black Charities, recognized by the Baltimore Business Journal as one of its 40 under 40 future business leaders. So, we appreciate everything you've been doing for the don't be coy. We appreciate everything you've been doing for the community and for Baltimore too. And I know that BCSB, the Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys, they appreciate everything that you're doing as well. Just so excited that you're excited. Going into the school year, a little bit of a bump, but that's okay. Yeah. So now for folks that want to help, that want to volunteer, that want to be a part of the mission, if anyone is involved in their son or a loved one attending BCSB, what's the best way to reach out and contact?
Well, they can go to our website, baltimorecollegiate.org, Baltimore Collegiate. So it's COLLEGIATE.
All right.
So BaltimoreCollegiate.org. And on there, you can, if you'd like to donate, you can donate to us. We love to get donations because it helps us, with the programming for our boys. If you'd like to enroll your son or your grandson or your nephew or whatever, you can click on that and enroll in the school. And if you're interested in being a teacher, you can send email to me, Avent, like my first initial and last name, Avent at BaltimoreCollegiate.org. We love to look at your resume and get you in to talk to you about that. But, I'm just really encouraging families. Like, if you believe in your son, if your son is precocious, if he's curious, if he's core, if he likes to read, he's quick with math and things like that, our school is a great school to bring him to. We're going to challenge him, and we're going to use those, all those skills he has. We're going to bring it out of him, but we want people who are dedicated to their son going to college, right? And so I make no bones about it, because some people might think, well, it's a boys' school, they'll straighten him out. If he got all these problems, let's just drop him off, they'll straighten him out. Mm-hmm. But what they might be frustrated about is that if he's not ready for the academic rigor, then they become even more frustrated, because now you throw him in here, and we're like pushing him and pushing him and pushing him, and then, and then they feel like, oh, I don't know if this is the right fit for them. So I try to talk to them on the front end.
Sure.
Like when we're talking right now. Think about who it is you'd like to bring to us. Is he somebody that you think can make it to college, that you've been preparing? He reads, he does, he's good at playing certain strategic games and things like that. We're a great environment for that.
And even if a child is maybe a bit rough around the edges, someone that is teachable, coachable.
Yeah. But some of those qualities I was talking about, you can see. Well, they could be, rough around the edges, but you can see the promise.
See the potential,
because you say, that boy's so bad, but he's smart as heck.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He can read everything, or he solves the problem. He teaches me how to do this all the time. It's in there, but you just need the right environment to help bring it out. Because sometimes boys act out because they're bored, because they're not being challenged.
They need something
constructive. They need constructive
to
challenge to really bring the best out of them. If your son or your grandson or whoever you're taking care of is like that, then I think we're the right place for you to come check out 4th grade to 8th grade.
Okay. Well, make sure you log on baltimorecollegiate.org. Mm-hmm. And we just thank you and everything that you and BCSB are doing for the community. And we look forward for you continuing for many years to come.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Without interruption.
Yeah, without interruption. We're going to do nothing but grow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to the CEO of Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys, Mr. Edwin Avent, for stopping by the podcast. If you want more information, you can log on baltimorecollegiate.org. I'm Erica Kane. Thank you so much for checking in with us for the BMore podcast. If you want to check out more episodes, just log on WMAR2news.com. Thanks.